Good evening, and welcome, sleepless historian. Tonight, we journey to a desert where silence held a secret, a place where the sands waited, and where humanity would touch power unlike anything before. It is July 16th, 1945. The Jornada del Muerto, the journey of the dead man, stretches across the horizon, a remote basin of earth, dust, and sparse vegetation, bathed in pre-dawn shadows. The wind whispers softly through sagebrush and sand, as if warning the world that something extraordinary is about to unfold. In the stillness of the desert, structures rise from the sand, small wooden huts for observers, tents for scientists, and a single towering steel tower. Atop this tower sits a metallic sphere, carefully constructed, resting silently. This is the gadget, the culmination of 3 years of secret work. It holds within it the energy of the stars, the energy of the atom itself. And the fate of the world will soon pass through it. The world at war. The world has been burning for nearly 6 years. Cities across Europe are scarred by bombs and fire. Millions of lives lost. Nations consumed by conflict and fear. In 1942, a small group of scientists and military leaders decided to race against time. They feared that Nazi Germany might build a weapon of unimaginable destruction first. And so, the Manhattan Project began. A secret effort spanning the United States, the United Kingdom, and Canada. In the deserts of New Mexico, a city rose where there was none, Los Alamos. Barbed wire, guarded roads, and unmarked vehicles hid the work of hundreds of men and women. Brilliant minds, young and old, toiled day and night. Among them, J. Robert Oppenheimer, philosopher and physicist Enrico Fermi, precise and calm, Niels Bohr, thoughtful, wary, yet deeply curious. They worked with numbers, equations, and metals, but also with doubt, fear, and conscience. They knew they were creating a force that could never be unseen, and that knowledge weighed heavily on each of them. The gadget and its power. The gadget was unlike any device humanity had known. Inside, it was the potential to release energy far beyond anything seen in nature or war. A chain reaction of atomic proportions, invisible yet devastating. Scientists debated endlessly. Would it work as planned? Could it fail catastrophically? Might it ignite the atmosphere itself? No one could be certain, but they knew without doubt that the world would never be the same. Over the months, the components were quietly transported across the desert. They arrived at the test site in secrecy, hidden in crates and guarded convoys. Engineers and soldiers assembled the tower and instruments. Instruments to measure light, pressure, heat, and the uncharted forces of the explosion. Every calculation was checked, every measurement double-checked, and still the unknown waited silently in the desert morning. The night before. The night before the test, the desert was calm. Rain fell softly in the distance, flickering lightning illuminated the horizon. The wind whispered among the dunes. Technicians walked quietly among the tents, checking instruments one last time. Soldiers waited patiently, unsure of what they might witness. Oppenheimer paced slowly, looking at the dark sky. He reflected on the work of centuries, the knowledge of generations, and the power that now rested in human hands. He whispered words that would haunt him forever. Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. Dawn approaches. As dawn broke, the desert shifted from black to deep blue. The first rays of sun painted the sand in muted golds and silvers. A hush fell over the observers. Even the wind seemed to pause. At 5:29 in the morning, all was ready. The gadget stood silently atop its tower, instruments ready, hundreds of eyes fixed on a single point on the horizon. And then the signal was sent. The flash and the mushroom cloud. A light brighter than the sun tore across the desert sky. The sand and instruments glowed white, then red, then violet. A massive fireball rose slowly, lifting smoke, dust, and heat high into the sky. Seconds later, a deep roar rolled across the desert floor. The ground trembled softly, and a mushroom cloud began its slow, silent ascent. The observers felt awe, terror, and relief. Some could not speak, others whispered in disbelief. It worked. The desert around them was transformed. Where sand had been, now there was trinitite, glass formed by the intense heat. And the world had changed quietly, in a single, blinding instant. Reflection in the desert. The sun rose fully, casting long shadows over the transformed desert. The scientists walked slowly among the instruments, absorbing the enormity of what they had witnessed. Some laughed nervously, some cried quietly, some simply stared, lost in thought. The wind moved again, gently, as if the desert itself was sighing. And in that moment, the silence was complete. The first human-made atomic explosion had come and gone, and the world would never be the same. The desert is quiet again. The wind seems to whisper, but nothing will ever be ordinary again. We now leave the quiet desert of Trinity and step into a world still at war. A world where the choices made in secret laboratories would reach far beyond the New Mexico sands, all the way to cities filled with people who did not even know what was coming. The decision to use the bomb. After Trinity, the scientists and military leaders gathered to discuss what had just happened. They had seen the flash. They had felt the heat. They had measured the power. But now came the question, how, if at all, should this power be used? The leaders in Washington considered the ongoing war in the Pacific. Japan, though weakened, had not surrendered. Cities burned from conventional bombing. Lives were being lost every day. In secret meetings, President Truman and his advisors debated, could this weapon end the war quickly? Would it save lives by preventing an invasion of Japan? Or was it a power too terrible to unleash on human beings? Scientists themselves were conflicted. Some, like Oppenheimer, reflected on the moral weight of their work. Others, like General Leslie Groves, focused on the practical necessity of using the weapon to end the war. In Los Alamos, discussions continued late into the night. Some feared that showing the bomb's power first on an uninhabited island would demonstrate force without mass death. Others argued that only a full-scale use on a city would send a message strong enough to force surrender. Preparing for flight. Meanwhile, across the Pacific, preparations were underway for what would become the mission of the Enola Gay. Pilots trained in complete secrecy, flying long hours over the ocean. The aircraft were modified, instruments adjusted, bombs carefully loaded. Crews whispered quietly among themselves, aware that history would soon remember every detail. The tension was heavy, but quiet. No one spoke of fear aloud. It was present, silent, a shadow that followed them everywhere. At the same time, scientists back in New Mexico sent detailed reports to the military. Calculations of yield, blast radius, and expected effects were reviewed. Even in their reports, caution was constant. Unknowns were many, but urgency was greater. Reflections of the scientists. We must pause here and reflect with the scientists themselves. Imagine sitting in a dimly lit room, looking at numbers and graphs, wondering not only if the weapon works, but whether it should be used. Oppenheimer would later write that the memory of Trinity haunted him, a light that burned brighter than the sun, a mushroom cloud climbing into the sky, and the knowledge that human hands had created something that could destroy cities in an instant. Some scientists proposed warnings to the Japanese cities. Others felt that only immediate use could end the war. Arguments were long, difficult, and quiet, not raised in anger, but in heavy contemplative voices. The long journey across the Pacific. As July turned into August, preparations were nearly complete. Bombs were carefully transported to the Mariana Islands to the airfield on Tinian Island, surrounded by tropical heat and swaying palm trees. The pilots and crew trained in the humid mornings, studying maps and coordinates, rehearsing the approach in complete silence. They knew little of the devastation that awaited, only that history was pressing them forward. Ships carrying supplies and scientists moved slowly across the Pacific. Conversations were hushed. The sea was calm. The clouds moved slowly above, unaware of the decisions below. Anticipation in the Pacific. In the early hours of August, the sky above Tinian was pale with sunlight. The airfield was quiet, the machines humming softly. The crew of the Enola Gay prepared their aircraft with care. They carried not only the bomb, but the weight of history itself. Imagine the calm of the morning, the sun rising slowly, the ocean reflecting light in gentle ripples, while beneath, men moved carefully among the planes, checking instruments, tightening bolts, and speaking in soft whispers. All around there was a strange stillness, as if the world itself knew the moment of transformation was near. Reflection on humanity. And so, as we follow this slow journey, we must consider the people who would be affected. Ordinary families in cities like Hiroshima, children playing in the morning light, market vendors arranging fruits and vegetables, students walking to school. None of them knew the silent clouds of science and war were moving slowly, inexorably, toward them. In this quiet contemplation, we realize that history is not only made in laboratories, but also in living rooms, in streets, in hearts. The choice to use the bomb was not made lightly. It was the product of fear, urgency, calculation, and inevitably, human limitation. The calm before the flash. As the Enola Gay prepared to lift into the sky, the Pacific morning was still. Waves lapped softly against the shore. Birds flitted across the horizon. A gentle wind moved through the tropical palms. And then, in the coming hours, a light brighter than anything known would pierce this calm, changing everything in its path. But for now, we remain in the quiet anticipation. The desert of New Mexico has faded behind us, and the world waits, breathless, for the dawn of the atomic age.
Now we leave the quiet Pacific dawn behind us and travel to a city alive with ordinary life. A city called Hiroshima. It is the morning of August 6, 1945. The sun rises slowly over the streets. Shadows stretch from wooden houses and small shops. Children run barefoot on stone paths. Vendors arrange fruits and vegetables in the markets. People laugh softly, greet one another, prepare for work. The city is filled with light, with color, with ordinary humanity. There is no hint yet of the shadow that will soon fall. Ordinary life in Hiroshima. Families wake quietly in the wooden homes. The smell of rice cooking drifts through the air. Fishermen push small boats into the river. School children carry satchels and wave to friends. Life flows slowly, rhythmically, peacefully. There is a sense of continuity, of calm. As though the world will go on forever in the same gentle way. The bomb approaches. Far above the clouds, the Enola Gay cuts silently through the sky. The bomb, little more than a strange metallic shape to anyone looking up, moves steadily toward its target. Inside the plane, the crew is quiet, aware of the weight they carry. Their hands are steady, their eyes focused. But their hearts know the gravity of their task. There is no cheering, no celebration. Only the slow, precise execution of a mission that will forever alter history. The city below remains unaware. People go about their morning as they always have. Blissfully unaware of the invisible forces that will soon descend upon them. The flash. At precisely 8:15 a.m., a light brighter than the sun bursts across the city. For a moment, all is white. Shadows are cast sharply, etched into stone and wood. The air trembles with heat and energy. Buildings, trees, and streets are suddenly illuminated with a harsh, unnatural brightness. The sky is filled with a pillar of fire, climbing into the clouds, rising like a column of both awe and terror. The people of Hiroshima experience a moment of shock. As if the world itself has been rewritten in an instant. Silence and shock. Then comes the silence. For a heartbeat, the city seems frozen, holding its breath. And then, a roar, a wave, a force that shakes the earth. Those close enough to see the flash feel heat on their skin. And the ground trembles beneath them. Buildings collapse silently at first. Then with the crushing sound of wood and stone giving way. People run, stumble, cry out. But even their movements are slowed, as though the city itself is suspended in disbelief. Human impact, descriptive, respectful. In the streets, in the markets, in homes, lives are irrevocably changed. Some are lost instantly. Some are trapped beneath rubble. Some survive, stunned and dazed, covered in dust and ash. The air is filled with smoke and the faint odor of burned materials. A strange, greenish light lingers over the ruins, a ghostly reminder of the energy that passed through them. And yet, life continues. A child cries quietly. A bird flutters from the trees. The wind moves through the streets. The city breathes, even as it trembles. Reflections on Hiroshima. The Enola Gay continues its flight home. Silent now, carrying men who will remember the moment forever. In the city below, survivors begin to emerge. They move slowly through the ruins. Hands shielding eyes from the brightness that lingers. Some search for loved ones. Some stand quietly, trying to understand what has happened. The magnitude of human power, of human decision, has been revealed in the most vivid way imaginable. The morning sun rises again over Hiroshima. But it is no longer ordinary. Light and shadow now tell a new story. One of human achievement, human error, and human suffering. As we leave the streets of Hiroshima, let us walk slowly with the survivors in our minds, listening to the quiet wind, feeling the soft sunlight, and remembering the fragility of life, and the immense responsibility of knowledge. The city breathes. But everything has changed. And in the stillness, we hear the weight of history. And the echo of choices made high above. In a silent sky. We now leave Hiroshima behind and turn slowly toward another city, another morning, another dawn of light and shadow. It is August 9, 1945, 3 days after Trinity, 3 days after Hiroshima. The sun rises over Nagasaki, a city tucked between hills and rivers, calm and ordinary, unaware of the extraordinary forces approaching. Life in Nagasaki. In the quiet streets, merchants prepare their shops. Fishermen push boats into the harbor. Children run along the riverbanks, their laughter light and fleeting. The smell of fresh bread and steaming tea fills the morning air. Life flows slowly, rhythmically, peacefully. As if nothing has changed. As if the world is still the same as it has always been. And yet, far above, in the sky, the Enola Gay's companion aircraft carries a terrible secret. A metallic object, small yet unimaginably powerful, moves silently toward the city. The second bomb. At 11:02 a.m., the bomb, nicknamed Fat Man, is released. It falls slowly, gracefully, from the sky, almost like a leaf in the wind. The morning continues, unaware, while invisible energy gathers beneath it. Then, the flash. Brighter than the sun. A fireball rises, columns of smoke climb, and shadows are carved into walls, streets, and hearts. The air trembles, the earth quakes softly, and the city is bathed in a strange, blinding light. Buildings collapse. People stumble, cry out, or fall silent. Some are lost instantly. Some are trapped, waiting for help that will not come quickly. And yet, life continues. The wind moves. Birds flutter, disturbed but alive. Rivers flow, carrying the reflection of a new, painful reality. Human reflection. As we walk slowly through the streets of Nagasaki in our imagination, we remember the quiet, ordinary people of the city. Families having breakfast, children playing in courtyards, elders walking to temples. They did not see the world coming to them. They could not know the decisions made thousands of miles away. Yet their lives were forever changed in a single, silent instant. The human cost of knowledge, of power, of choice, is carried quietly by each person who survives. Oppenheimer and the burden of knowledge. Back in New Mexico, Oppenheimer and the other scientists watch reports of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They see the destruction, the suffering, the shadows of human lives. They understand, in a way that no calculation could convey, the magnitude of what they have unleashed. Some felt pride, that the war might end, that lives might ultimately be saved. Others felt guilt, that humanity had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. The faces of men and women in the cities haunted them. The questions of morality, of science, of responsibility, would never leave them. The birth of the atomic age. And so, the atomic age begins. A new world, where light can heal and destroy. Where knowledge brings both hope and fear. Where the sky itself is both a canvas and a warning. The war ends shortly after Nagasaki. Yet the memory of these mornings, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, remains alive in the quiet of history. We must pause here, in reflection. We imagine the cities, slowly rebuilding. We imagine the people, slowly walking through life again. We hear the wind over the mountains, the faint flow of rivers. And we remember that the power of humanity is immense. But so is its responsibility. As our journey comes to an end, we walk slowly through the deserts, the oceans, the cities, and the skies. We remember the Trinity Desert, quiet, vast, silent. We remember Hiroshima, bathed in light, then shadow. We remember Nagasaki, a morning like any other, suddenly transformed. And in this quiet reflection, we understand. Knowledge is not only power. Power carries choice. Choice carries consequence. And consequence stretches far beyond the moment, far beyond the desert, far beyond the sky. The world is never the same after a single flash of light. And yet, the wind still moves softly, the rivers still flow. And life continues, slowly, quietly, as if to remind us that time, too, is patient.